Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, recording.
Tell me, what was it? We have 2 more weeks, I think, isn't it?
I think
Yes,
Gabriel was talking about
you.
I think you was talking about the book, like
No book. I am talking about the online classes that we have left.
yes, we have 2 more classes.
Yes, okay. Let's
In
go
3 weeks
because I
time.
have uploaded 1 more assignment for you and it is almost finished, I think, isn't it? Did you did the assignment? Did you do the assignment?
We've done the first one, and the second one we are on
Oh,
it.
we are doing. You are doing, isn't it?
Yeah, the first one, yeah.
And the second one still you are doing. You are working on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's go then the chapter 30. As you see, we are questioning the monetary part of the economics, what's called the financial applications, the money supply, the money demand, and the impact to the economy. And we are exercising today the inflation, the impact of the inflation to the economy, the enlargement of the money into the system. Because last lecture we have done the central bank applications, how it is affecting and changing the economy. We exercise the monetary tools, the policy tools, the open market operations, reserve ratio, and discount rates. And today we are going to enlarge and increase our knowledge regarding to this topic. I think you know what is inflation. Do you remember what was the inflation? Inflation is the rise of the general price level. So you have to know these things, these general things. And from your understanding, inflation is very important parameter which is affecting and changing the whole economy. And it is very carefully treated, must be carefully controlled and regularly inspect for maintaining sustainable economical development and policy. As I have mentioned in the last lecture, money is the set of assets in an economy that people regularly use to buy goods and services, and it is very important asset because in the barter system, as I have mentioned in the last lecture, it was used some seashells, some tobacco, and some other precious materials, but money as itself, as a paper banknote, is not very valued, as an instinctive value is not real, but when you print it and put some marks and some figures on it, and it is becoming evaluated as $5, $10, $100, or €5, €10, €500. This kind of value is given. It is not instinctive. It will be given from the government when it is printed. And as a paper, plain paper is not valued. And from this direction, we are understanding the inflation is becoming very important since the currency is used. And if it is appreciated, then the value of the currency is becoming very popular and everybody wants to use. And it is becoming very good valued paper. And when it is depreciated, then most people don't like to use it, as we are having Turkish lira, or in Nigeria, naira, or in some other countries where they are using some, or in China, for example, the currency is not also very valued, or in the Russia, where they are using some rubles, in Ukraine, they are using, and they are having some depreciated currency. And it is always preferred to use internationally accepted and valued appreciated currencies such as dollar, euro, UK pound. These currencies are internationally accepted and used as a transactions, monetary transactions, and it is becoming very preferable currency in the international systems. As I said to you, China is the second leading economy, but yuan is not very popular to use in international transactions, and they are also using some dollar for these trade relations and some international transactions. And if the value of the currency is very heavily depreciated, they are trying to exchange it with the other powerful, strong currencies. And inflation, as you are understanding, is becoming very important, because if the currency is not valued, then this means there is the price rise. Rising of the general price is affecting and changing the inflation, and inflation also affecting the interest rate, and interest rate affecting the investment savings. And then it goes like this. Then the GDP, the production operation process, the production capacity will be enlarged or decreased, or the exportation of goods and importation of the goods is also affected, and the balance of payments, everything is affected. Therefore, inflation is somehow a very good multiplier for affecting and changing the whole economy. And inflation is supposed to be a hyperinflation when it is above the 50% somehow. And if you have some 50% and above inflation, this is called hyperinflation, and it is not very good for the economy, because your currency will become very depreciated and very devaluated, and is not a very preferable currency for using in the transactions and using in the economy. As in the Zimbabwe realized, they replaced the dollar with the Zimbabwean dollar, and most of the people preferring to use dollar because Zimbabwean dollar is very depreciated. Or in the past, in Turkish lira, we observed before 2004 or 5, I think, it was very, very depreciated and very less valued currency, and you were probably requiring 1 million or 2 million Turkish lira to buy a bread. Therefore, this kind of depreciation of the currency is affecting the whole economy. And inflation, as I said to you, is very important. And when we are looking to the history, in the many countries, this kind of effects is observed and changing the whole economical parameters and affecting the whole economy as a whole. In 70s, price rose by 7% in America, we are talking about, and during the 90s, price rose at an average rate of 2% per year, and which this was also acceptable rates. And from this point of view, when we are looking to the past, to the history, we are observing such devaluation and such a depreciation of the currency in the United States either, but mostly they are having strong currency, and this is the reason the dollar is preferable currency to use in the international transactions and international trade. And when we are looking to the quantity theory of money, it is used to explain the long-run determinants of the price level and the inflation rates. This is a very popular theory, the quantity theory of money. And this will helping hand to understand how it is affecting and changing the amount of the production and amount of the currency in the system, how it is the velocity of money, how it is affected and changing the system will be introduced to you in short minutes. And inflation is an economy-wide phenomena that concerns the value of economy medium of exchange, as we mentioned in the last lecture. And when the overall price level rises, the value of money is depreciated, as I mentioned to you, and it is not desired. It is better to have always sustainable and strong currency. And if there is an inflation in the economy, it should be around 1.50 to 3% maximum. Then higher than this is not desired and is not acceptable. If you have more than 5%, 10%, it is very dangerous for the economy. It's affecting and changing the whole economical parameters, as I have mentioned to you. The money supply is a policy variable that is controlled by the central bank, as we mentioned, because central bank objectives or the jobs is also to print money, and printing money is not always used currently in the economies to develop and enlarge the economy, because when you are printing the money, it is creating inflation, because printing money causing enlargement of the money supply, and when the money supply is enlarged, it causing inflation. And this is also always not good for many economies for controlling it. Either you are collecting the old currencies and replacing it as it is realized in the United States, but most economies continuously still printing money, and this is causing too much to the economy. It is creating too much problem to the economy. And as I have introduced you in the last lecture, we are using, instead of this printing money, open market operations, so-called the contractionary money policy, expansionary money policy. There is also quantitative easing, or monetary easing, which is somehow similar to printing, but you are just only playing with the paper market to access to the money to reduce its amount in the system, or you enlarge it for relaxing the market. And this is mostly used, and from this point of view, you may use the quantitative easing or monetary easing as an instrument for controlling the money market, either as instead of using some other tools such as printing money. And money demand has several determinants, including interest rate and the average level of price in the economy. And people hold money because it is the medium of exchange, because you want to go to the shop, you want to use these currencies for making some transactions, realizing your desired demands and shops and buys. And this will then help you to create a communication between the dealers, so-called the producer, and the consumers. And it is necessary to use in the market mostly the money. There is also some credit cards, debit cards, or bitcoins, and some other kind of means for using in the transactions or in the market, but we are still using the currency as a popular tool for exchanging any goods and services. The amount of the money people choose to hold depends on the price of goods and services, as we know. If the amount of the money is enlarged, then the price is supposed to be enlarged, or if the price is enlarged, then it is expected that the people's desire to hold money is going to be enlarged. And from this direction, we are understanding if the price going up, then the incomes is expected to become consolidated, because rising the price is causing somehow expensive market structure, and with the existing income and the salaries or the wages, you cannot buy this for maintaining the similar, let's say, welfare or the standards. And due to this reason, the governments every 6 months giving some consolidated budget and income to the officers, to the workers, to the employees for maintaining the sustainable welfare and the development. And this is also creating some inflationary pressure to the economy and reducing the value of the money. And when we are looking to the supply of money, there are some 3 factors affecting the money supply. And the first one will be the open market operations that we already exercised, the contractionary money policy and expansionary money policy, which is somehow the quantitative easing or monetary easing that I have mentioned to you. You can sell and enlarge the market, sell some bonds to the market and reduce the money, or buy some bonds and enlarge the money supply in the system. This is how it is realized for maintaining the desired money supply in the system. Usually this is realized by the central bank activities, and the central bank buys some government bonds for creating some money to the system, and this is supposed to be quantitative easing or monetary easing. And the reserve requirements is also introduced to you in the last lecture, imposed for the banking sector, and this is somehow a percentage deposits made by customers at the bank that the bank must keep hold of rather than lending it out. And this reserve requirement is also used as an instrument for controlling the money market, because if the reserve requirement is high, then the amount of the money which is held in the system is reduced, increased, and the money in the system, in the circulation, is reduced, supposed to be, and vice versa is realized for the opposite case. And the discount rate and interest rate is also similarly applied. If you are increasing, yes, please.
sí èmi tí mo sọ fún ẹ pé máa graduate ní tí mo ń bọ̀ wá sáàbù Nàìjíríà.
Mr. Ope, please mute your mic.
If you have any question, please ask to me and don't interrupt me. Let me finish. If you have any question to the lecture, to the class, to the lesson, you are allowed to speak, but otherwise don't interrupt the class. As I said to you, the interest rate is also similarly the discount rate, similarly affecting and applying to the system. If you are increasing the interest rate, the savers promotion is enlarged and then increasing their saving account to the banking sector and to the central bank. Similarly, the discount rate realized in this direction. And if you reduce it, then the desire to keep the money in the bank is reduced and decreased. And this is then reducing and decreasing the investment also, so-called the people, the entrepreneur, the activities of the investors to create some investment in the domestic sector and domestic market is reduced. And factors affecting the demand for money is also realized by the rate of interest on the loans and the number and or value of monetary transactions that we expect to carry out, and the extension to which we also want to hold other financial assets such as bonds, properties, savings are also affecting and changing the demand capacity. And the changing in the GDP, so-called the gross domestic production, the extent to which it is possible to use debit cards, credit cards, and this kind of activities affecting and changing the economical usage and the demand capacity of the money, and the extent to which we might have to pay out larger unexpected payments such as precautionary motivations and the other activities speculative to affect and change the amount of the money demand is also subjected. And the rate of anticipated inflation is also considerable factors affecting the money demand. And the demand for money, what influences individual when we are looking at the expected returns interest rate on money relative to the expected returns on the other assets, and the risk factor, risk of holding money derives principally, and liquidity, liquidity problem, as you are understanding, the money circulated in the system, it can be affect and change the money demand in the market. And the income also, if you have sufficient income, then you are affecting and changing the money demand, money circulated in the system, and you go to shop and enlarge the usage of the money in the system. If you have limited income and restricted amount of money, then this will then reduce also the money demand. Also, GNI, gross national production, and gross national income is also affecting and changing the amount of the money in the system. The liquidity system is also affected and changed by this money. If you don't have sufficient reserve to pump up to the system, then this will also affect and reduce the money in the system. And when we are looking at the aggregate money demand equation, then it is supposed to be MD is equal to, this is equal indication, unfortunately it is not very clearly shown, is equal to P multiplied L in bracket R with Y, which is the function of the R and Y. With the R is the interest rate, Y is the national income, and P is the price level, and MD is the money demanded. And when we are going to divide this to the price, then we are getting then aggregate real money demanded, and it is equal to the aggregate real money demanded, which is the function of the real interest rate and the national income. And MDP, as I mentioned to you, is the aggregate real demand, and it is a function of the national income and the nominal interest rate, as it is represented in the above given equation. MDP should be equal to the, actually there is an equal indication, but it is not shown here, is equal to the real money demanded, aggregate money demanded in real term, is the function of the real interest rate and the national income. And the MD in real term, the money demand in real term, in aggregate demand in real term, is represented with the figure as it is given here. As you are observing, the aggregate real money demand is inversely proportional with interest rate, as I mentioned to you. Here it is represented, this money demand, as an investor. So you can also imagine the demand capacity in the banking sector, which is realized by the savers, and savers are the proportionally related with the interest rate, which is not illustrated here, but the demand is the investor, so-called the people who are getting some money as a credit, as a borrowing or loan, or as a lending money for using their economical activities. Here is inversely proportional, and as you are observing, there is an inverse proportional relationship between the interest rate and the aggregate real money demanded, where it is the MD divided to P is the aggregate real money demanded. If the P is removed, then it is only aggregate money demanded in nominal terms. But if you are dividing the aggregate money demand to the price level, then this will give you the real term, the real estimated value. Therefore, we are using, as I mentioned to you, in economics, always the real terms, and this is represented here with the real money demand in aggregate. Then the interest rate is is here nominal interest rate subjected. If it is divided to the P again, this will then becomes real interest rate. And this is, as you are observing, inverse proportional relationship is represented and illustrated on the graphic. And when you are looking to the real income changes from the given format graphic, you observe here the income change is shifting. You are observing here L is represented with the national income shifted to the right, and which means there is an enlargement in the money and income in the system, and results of this enlargement, it is expected that the aggregate money demanded in real term is enlarged and the interest rate is reduced because of this enlargement, as you are observing on the graphic. The money market, okay, you are following because something happens. I think it stopped accidentally. Okay. The money market used aggregate money demand and aggregate money supply, and it is in the equilibrium when the money supply is equal to the money demand, as you are observing here, is in nominal term. And alternatively, we can define equilibrium using the supply of real money and the demand for real money. And by dividing both sides to the price, this will then gives us these real terms. This equilibrium condition will yield the equilibrium, as I mentioned to you. Here we are representing the sorry, just let me quick control this. Okay. Doesn't work. Okay, then we have here the money market equilibrium. As you are observing, we have the real money supply, which is not affected from the interest rate, especially in the long term, and the aggregate real money demanded, it is affected by the interest rate, and real money in the long run can only be changed by printing money or doing some other activities, enlarging and increasing the economical activities, or the money such as monetary easing and other activities can affect and change the money supply, but the interest rate is not effectively used here in the long run. We are considering, therefore, we are moving from R1 to R2 to the second point of the curve you are observing, this is affecting and changing the money demand, but then the real money supply is affected and changed if the interest rate is moving away from the economy, and this will then bring the aggregate demand to the third level, but still the real money supply is intact, not changing. But as I mentioned to you, you can print money. For example, the central bank can do some activities for shifting the money supply to the right or to the left. If it is enlarged the money supply, then this goes to the right. And if it is reducing the money supply, then this will go to the left. And I hope you are understanding how it is affecting and changing the economy as it is represented here. The money supply is supposed to be enlarged because the central bank is printing some money and shifting the money supply from 1 to 2. And from this point of view, you are observing the real interest rate is reduced from R1 to R2, and the money demand is also reduced. And this interest rate reduction affecting the money supply, and also because the printed money is enlarging and increasing the money supply, and the money demand is also affected and enlarged, as you are observing here, because money demand is dependent to the lower interest rate, because people who want to loan some money, they don't want expensive credit use. They are preferring to use cheaper credit, and cheaper credit has also mean lower interest rate, credit with lower interest rate level. And the change in national income, as you are observing, in the national income, if the national income is increased, then you are observing here, it is moving to the right and becoming enlarged, and this will then result of this, if the money supply is intact, then this will then shift the equilibrium level to the higher level. As you are observing, the R1 moves to the R2, so-called interest rate is enlarged and increased, and the real money supply. Do you have any question, Gabriel?
No, I don't.
Because you are here. Okay. Then, as I said, to the national income positively affecting the market and bringing the equilibrium higher level. If you have any question, you just ask me. If you do have any question, you ask me, please. In the long run, the overall level of prices adjusts to the level at which the demand for money equals to the money supply, as you observe in the equation and in the graphic, and value of the money and price are inversely proportional, as you observed in the graphic here. And the increases in the money supply reduces the value of money, you observed in the graphic, and the increase the demand because consumer will need more money to buy and shop. And these are the, let's say, outcomes of the graphics. Price increases causes inflation, and this reduces the value of money, and it is somehow depreciation of the currency. And opposite case is the appreciation of the money. When the price decreases, causes deflation and increase the value of money. And you are observing here, yes?
I'm not seeing what you are presenting, sorry.
Let me?
I say I'm not seeing what you are presenting. I'm only seeing the money market.
You don't follow the slides, you mean?
Yeah, I'm at slide 19. I'm only seeing the money market and I'm not seeing anything on
Ah, okay, then I have to upload again. Probably something happens. Okay, let me upload.
Myself, I'm not seeing it.
Okay, upload it. I will upload again. Okay, let me upload it again. Probably something happens. Interrupted. Because some people comes and goes, and this sometimes causing some interventions to this presentation. Okay, let's see how it is now. Let me upload it again. It comes. It comes. Something happens. Let me see. Do you see now?
No, it's loading on my
See
screen.
nothing?
Now it comes on my screen.
You should see probably soon. I'm moving. You don't see?
Now it has come, sir. On my screen, I'm seeing it.
For me, I can see now.
You can see.
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it.
Okay, then it's good. You said 18. You didn't say. You want to refresh you with after 18 or is it okay? Are you seeing this?
Yes, sir, we are seeing it.
Okay. Okay, we were here. If you have any question, let me repeat it. Did you get these slides here? Or you have any question? There is here, you see, there is interest rate and aggregate demand inversely proportional, as I mentioned to you. And here it is supposed that the income, the curve, the inversely related curve, is shifted to the right because the income, the national income, is enlarged. And when you are looking to the money market, use the aggregate money demand and aggregate money supply, and the money conditions for the equilibrium is realized when it is money supply and money demand in nominal term or either in real term is realized. And alternatively, we can define equilibrium using the supply of real money and the demand for real money by dividing both sides to the price level. As I mentioned to you, then this will then gives you the real values, so-called the real demand and real aggregate real demand and aggregate real supply, okay? And here you are observing we are dividing the aggregate supply in price divided, and this will then gives you the real aggregate money supply in real terms, and also the money demand in real terms is interpreted. And the equilibrium conditions will yield an equilibrium where the nominal interest rate is supposed to be represented with R, and if you divide it R to the P to the price, this will then give you the real interest rate. Okay, and here we are using the nominal, but the curve is in real terms. As you are observing, the real money supply and the real money demand curve is represented. The inversely related, this orange colored curve is the aggregate real money demand curve, and the vertical line is the aggregate real money supply curve. Is that okay? You are seeing this? Do you see this
Yes, sir.
slide?
Yes.
Okay. And as I mentioned to you, if the interest rate is decreasing or increasing, here it is first increased, and results of this increase, as you are observing, the aggregate money demand is also decreased, but the money supply is not changed. And when you are observing, if the real interest rate is decreasing now, it is shifted to the right side, and then the aggregate money demand in real term is also affected and shifted to the right, but you are observing the real money supply is not affected because for changing the real money supply, the so-called the central bank must do some let's say application, let's say printing money or doing some open market operations or quantitative easing activities can be realized for enlarging or reducing the money supply or shifting to the money supply to the right or to the left must be realized by the central bank because it is the objectives and the jobs of this market, and the central bank can do this. And when you are observing here, this is realized because now the central bank did something and changed the money supply and shifted to the right. And as you are observing, it is moving from point 1 to point 2. And as you are observing, when this is done, then the money demanded the inversely shaped, realize this brown or orange curve is moving from point 1 to point 2, results of this money supply enlargement. And this is then creating some reasonable credit and reasonable money to the money demander, so-called investors, so-called entrepreneurs. And when you are observing, if it is in the first phase, if the government want to enlarge the investments and want to distribute some money to the market, it can do some applications or activities. As it is here realized, they pump up the money to the system, quantitative easing is realized and enlarge the money supply, and results of this, the interest rates fall down, and this then goes to enlarge and increase the investment, which means there is more economic activities in the system for enlarging and increasing the economy and the GDP, because only you can enlarge GDP with this kind of activities. Otherwise, monetary activities and monetary enlargement can only be realized. I mean, the monetary GDP enlargement can only be realized with the inflation, because you can enlarge the amount of the money as a number, but as a counted number, but not the real economical value is enlarged. Therefore, from year to year, the economical activities must be calculated with the real GDP values, with the real values in terms of the real values, because this will then help to understand whether the economy is doing well and the real GDP, so-called the gross domestic production, the amount of the produced goods and services is enlarged or not. If you are only concentrating the nominal values, this will then manipulate the economy, which is mostly used by the politicians, and it is not good for the economy. And as you are observing, if the national income is enlarged, this is also causing some positive impact to the economy. And results of this is then shifting the equilibrium to the higher level. You are observing here the interest rate, results of this national income enlargement is shifted to the higher level. The interest rate is also enlarged, and the economy is supposed to be a little bit shifted to the higher level without playing with the money supply. This can also realized by the inspection of the governments and application of the government. As you're observing here, the real money supply is not changing, but the national income is affecting and changing the economy to the little bit higher level, which is given on the graphic at point 2, moving from 1 to 2. And money supply, money demand, and monetary equilibrium is supposed to be realized in this direction, whether the changing the national income or changing and playing with the national supply, so-called the money supply, which is affecting and changing the economy, or you can do some, let's say, monetary activities in the banking sector by reducing the interest rate or enlarging and increasing the money supply in this direction, which may contribute to enlarge and increase the savings and then also the investment. As I said to you, the overall level of price adjusts to the level at which the demand for money supply and demand equals each other, and value of money and price are inversely proportional, as you are observing here in the money demanded. And the increases in the money supply reduces the value of the money and increases the demand, because consumers will need more money to buy and shop. This will then accelerate and increase the market capacity, because the money is enlarged in the system. And the price increases causes inflation, and this reduces the value of money, as you observed in the graphic, and it is the depreciation of the currency. And opposite is the appreciation of the currency or money. Price decrease causes deflation, and increase, this will then cause some appreciation or increase the value of money, which is better off in general. You are observing here the value of money and price level are inversely proportional. As much as you are increasing the money, because you are seeing price level is high when it is going downwards, and value of money is going up and becomes appreciated when it is moving to the up, which means the upward position will become higher and valued, and the vice versa realized for the price. Therefore, value of the money and price of the products are inversely proportional. Therefore, if you are increasing the prices, this will cause some inflation and reduce the value of money. And as you are observing, the quantity of money is enlarged as much as you are increasing the, let's say, prices, and this will then cause some more money into the system, and the value of money is depreciated. And the money supply is not affected because money supply can only play and change results of the central bank activities. But as you are observing, price increase affecting the economy increases the quantity of money, because if the price goes up, you want more money to shop. You go with 100 Turkish lira and buy some, let's say 10 some bread, and after a year, if you go to the market and with this 100 Turkish lira you buy 8 bread, this means you require some 20 or 30 Turkish lira to buy the same amount of bread, which is the means the quantity of money must be enlarged, or the income you are getting must be increased for being able to sustain and maintain this similar welfare or similar consumption level. Otherwise, this is then causing some welfare loss, and this is then also causing some money depreciation, and value of the money will become reduced results of this price increases. And you see the equilibrium is indicated here at point A, and as much as this goes down, the equilibrium level will become lower level, and the value of money becomes lower, and the price of the products becomes higher, which is the inflation, and the amount of the money is also enlarged, and this is not good for the economy. Therefore, if you move to the right, the economy is not going well, is doing bad. And if goes right, so to the left, sorry, then the economy doing good. Then you have a good economy, as much as you are increasing and enlarging the value and reducing the amount of the money in the system, and somehow price level will become to the maintained desired level, not very high, then it is good for the economy. If your price level is very high in the economy, as we are currently exercising in Cyprus and in Turkey and maybe in other countries, results of this pandemic and results of this bad economy policy, then the people suffering will exercising problems. Let's go to the next slides. I have some students, but I will contact them later. You see here the value of money again represented at point A, and increase in the money supply, shifting the price level higher, and this will then reduce the money value, or the value of money is decreasing and the amount of the money is enlarged, and this is not good for the economy, as I mentioned to you, because now you have some inflationary pressure in the system, and this is not good for the economy. We don't like it. I hope you are understanding. I hope you are following the class without problem. Then the classical theory, when we are coming to the classical economical application, so-called dichotomy. The quant theory of money, as I have mentioned to you, the price level is determined why it might change over time, is called the quant theory of money, and the quantity of money available in the economy determines the value of money, and the primary cause of inflation is the growth in the quantity of money, as I have mentioned to you several times in this class, and it's not good. And classical dichotomy, when we are coming to the classical dichotomy and monetary neutrality, we are understanding how it is affecting and changing the economy. The nominal variables are variables measured in monetary units, which means the currency will be estimated with the current value, with the, let's say if you have 10 Turkish lira, this is written Turkish lira is counted and calculated. This is then the current value. You are going to calculate everything regarding to the current value and monetary value. And the real values are variables measured in the physical units, which means based on a year. You can count everything regarding to the some base year, which will help you to estimate everything to this year. Then you can compare easily to see how the economy doing well. If you want to calculate, for example, the 1980s, 2018 to 2020s development, then you have to take the 18 as a base year, then measure everything regarding to the year's price, so-called the 2018 year's prices. then you will calculate everything with this 18 in 2020. Then you will see how it is the economy doing well, whether the economy is doing well or not. You will easily understanding with this calculation, because base year estimation is helping hand for measuring the amount of the changes in the economy, the quantity of the production changing in the economy, how much contribution realized to the real values, to the real economical applications. Otherwise, you can count only the monetary value. As you are observing currently, we are having 20-30% more than 50% in some products, the inflation and the prices. And if the prices goes up, you can multiply it. You produce 10 units and multiply it $5, 5 Turkish lira, let's say in 2018 is 50 Turkish lira for 5 units. Let's say you produce 50 units, 55 units, and you have 10 Turkish lira, then multiplying it, then you have some $50 or 50 Turkish lira as a reserve. And if it is increased to 15, and then you have again the monetary value, 5 Turkish lira. If you're going to calculate it with the 15, then you will get it 75 Turkish lira. And this is then the real term estimation. But if you're going to calculate it with the nominal values, if 5 Turkish lira goes to 10 Turkish lira, then you're going to calculate it with 10, then it is making 150, which means approximately 50% increase in the nominal term doesn't make the economical enlargement. It is only indicating the monetary value. It is only indicating the nominal enlargement of the economy. But in real terms, your economy is moving from 50 to 75, not to 150, because 150 is the nominal value because of the inflation, because of the price increase, because of the product price increase. And then the real economical development can be observed from 50 to 75, which is in real terms, which is the 2018 year's base year prices considered and estimated. Therefore, it is better to have always the real values for estimating the economy, for determining the exactly enlargement of the economy. The Hume is the economist. Real economic variables do not change with changes in the money supply, as it is mentioned today to you several times, and as I have shown to you in the simplest example. I will put some examples also to you if you want to see how it is calculated after the lecture. According to the classical dichotomy, difference force influence real and nominal variables, and changes in the money supply affect nominal variables, but not real variables, as I mentioned to you, because nominal variables are easily changed, because you are changing and affecting everything with this monetary values, with these current values, which is only the price changes represented. And you may also calculate the real changes in the product as from the product sides, but it is better to have the real values and the real prices, which is dependent to the base year, and this will then help you to understand, to see the economical impact better. And the irrelevance of monetary changes for real variables is called monetary neutrality. And the velocity of money is the speed of money for adjusting the bill travels around the economy from valley to valley, so place to place, so-called. Therefore, velocity is also important to determine the speed of money to circulate in the system for estimating how it is affecting and changing the economy. And the velocity and the monetary value of money is estimated as given this: V is equal to P multiplied Y dividing to M, which is MV equal to PY here. You can use also M multiplied V is equal to P multiplied Y. This means the price multiplied with the amount of the output will be equal to the amount of the money and the circulated money in the system. Therefore, this V is equal to, this should be an equal indication after the V. V is the velocity of money, or the speed of money, is equal to the P multiplied Y dividing to the M or you may rewrite this equation as V multiplied M is equal to P multiplied Y. This is then the monetary theory or the monetary value for the quantity equation, which is given in this slides. And rewriting the equation, as I mentioned to you, P multiplied V is equal to P multiplied Y. There is an equation here, but it is not seen here because probably there is a problem with the adoption. You got this equation. This is then the quantity equation. MV is equal to PY. M is the quantity of money, V is the velocity of the money, P is the price, and Y is the output. Therefore, if you multiply the velocity of money to the quantity of money, it will be, or it must be equal to the price of the money to the quantity of production or the output. Did you get it? Do you have any problem with this equation?
No, sir.
Okay, Abenazir. Haylo. Abenazir, you will get from a very high participation rate. You will get better. The quantity equation, as I said to you, relates the quantity of money. I remember you talked to me about, but still in progress. I don't know when will be, because they are having problem, you know. They are having problem and we don't know how it is going to be. The quantity equation relates the quantity of money and the nominal value of output, which is the P multiplied Y. And the rest of the equation is M and Y, which is the quantity of money will be multiplied with the velocity of money or the speed of money. And the quantity equation shows that an increase in quantity of money in an economy must be reflected in one of three other variables. The price level must be rise, as you are observing from this equation, which must be changed for changing and affecting the economy. The quantity of output must be rise, as you observe in the MBPQ equation, and the velocity of money must fall for changing the economical structure of the quantity equation. And here it is given the velocity, as you observe, it is somehow stagnating, very stable, and the nominal GDP is increasing from 60s to 2000, but the velocity is somehow stay intact. And the M2 is then, as you are observing, the amount of the money and the paper market and the cash coins is represented, is somehow is shifting up and down and around the nominal GDP is realized, but somehow after the 90s, it's some become reduced. Probably the problems and the economical stagnation cause this reduction. And the equilibrium price level, inflation rate, and the quantity of money again is the velocity of money relatively stable over the time, as I mentioned to you. And when the fit changes the quantity of money, it causes proportionally changes in the nominal value of output, as mentioned, P multiplied Y. And the money is neutral. Money does not affect output because, as I said to you, money can only represent in the equation, and this then only affect and change the output if it is the quantity of the production operation is realized and enlarged. Otherwise, this is only in the monetary value can be affecting and changing the economy. Then we are giving to you the case study, the money and the price during the hyperinflations. Hyperinflation is an inflation that exceeds 50%, as I said to you. And hyperinflation occurs in some countries because government print too much money or using some other methods and enlarging the economy, such as quantitative easing may be excessively used, or devaluating money, and this will then cause too much to the economy, because devaluating money is also causing some depreciation and causing some enlargement in the economy for the money supply. And when we are looking to Hungary and Austria is given, the price level is, you are observing, is almost during the 1921 to 1923 is somehow is very high, and then it becomes stable. And in the Hungary is almost similarly realize it goes from 1921 to 1924 is the highest inflation, or the so-called the very high inflation observed, and money supply goes then stable after 2000 some 1924 25. And in Germany and in Poland, when we are looking, we are giving this because during the war period, after the war, we are talking about after the war is the first World War is started 1914 and goes to 1918, and then it goes to restriction period. Therefore, the money price level goes up and the money supply probably enlarge. And as you are observing after this, then this becomes stable. Then in the Second World War, after the Second War, it is again some constructional period realized. And as you are observing here, it is again similar implication observed for Germany and Poland. This is the unexpected period results of this war and the hyperinflation observed. The inflation tax, when the government raises revenue by printing money, it's said to be a levy on the inflation tax, because tax is also burden for the economy, and tax is also increasing the prices, isn't it? And tax is somehow indirectly causing some inflation, and this is then negatively affecting the economy. Therefore, as I have mentioned in the last lecture, tax should be reasonable for maintaining sustainable economy. Otherwise, nobody will profit from this inflation and from this tax, which is applied very high. Inflation should be around 3%, and the tax rate must be maximum 10%. Otherwise, it is not good for the economy. It is causing too much to the economy, and nobody will collect this tax either. And inflation tax is like a tax on everyone who holds money. And the inflation ends when the government institutes fiscal reforms, such as cut in government spending. This is also possible. Government spending reduction is also the means for reducing this enlargement of the money. And the Fisher effect, the Fisher is also a well-known economist, refers to one-to-one adjustment of the nominal interest rate to the inflation rate. This is so-called, you are adjusting the prices in different countries with the same. For example, if in Nigeria you have 0.50 cent, let's say naira, you want to buy a bread with naira, with the representation of the exchange rate of the 0.50 cent in dollar, then it should be in Turkey and in Cyprus also 0.50. This is then one-to-one adjustment of the values to Turkish lira, to dollar and naira. This is done in the Bretton Woods system. This will then used as a common currency for adjusting the nominal currencies to the global market. And at the end, the dollar becomes very appreciated, and this is then caused too much to the US economy either. Therefore, adjusting the money to one-to-one as a transparent economical structure is good for the economies. But sometimes if you are using only the currency, the let's say dollar or some other currencies for replacing and exchanging, then this will then sometimes causing too much appreciation of the dollar, and this is not good for the economy, for the bilaterally, for the emerging economies, for the adopted economies using this dollar, and for the US economy, where they are having too high dollar in their system, and they are not able to trade their products to the other nations because it will become very expensive. As we are having currently here very high inflation, and the dollar becomes very appreciated as euro appreciated, then we probably don't prefer to buy too much imported products, and we don't like to go to the other nations, other countries, because dollar and euro becomes very expensive for us because our currency is depreciating. And this is then how it is affecting and changing the economies. And from this point of view, Fisher effect is good to adopt the currencies one-to-one adjustment to the countries, between the countries, and this will then help to maintain sustainable economies in the global market. And the real interest rate stays the same, as you are observing, the nominal interest rates and the inflation is stagnating continuously. In the given example, the inflation is going up and down very unexpectedly, and this is not good for the economy, because we are desiring some 3% inflation in the economies for maintaining sustainable economical models. and the nominal interest rate and the inflation somehow is adopted in this example. But as you are observing, the nominal interest rate is sometimes below the inflation, and when the nominal interest rate is below the inflation, this means the real interest rate gives you negative inflation. This is then the negative inflation, and you are putting the money to the bank, and at the end of the day you will not get sufficient interest, because this will generate only negative value, and your currency will become, and your, let's say, loan or the credits that you are using or saving capital will become depreciated and will become reduced after 2 years or after 3 years, because nominal interest rate must be higher than the inflation for getting a higher real interest rate. Otherwise, you are always getting lower values than you saved, than you loan. This is how it is estimated. A fall in purchasing power. Inflation does not in itself reduce the people's real purchasing power, but it is causing too much. The Schulte cost and menu cost and relative price variability is affecting and changing these inflations. Let's see how it is affecting and changing the economy. The tax distortions, also the confusion and inconvenience, also affecting and changing the arbitrary redistribution of the wealth. And when we are looking to the Schulte cost, are the resources wasted when inflation encourages people to reduce their money holdings. The Schulte cost or Schulte cost is somehow is directing you to giving up to using your currency, is somehow because your currency become depreciated, and this will then reduce your currency holding in your hands, and this then directing you to the other currencies. You may prefer to use currently, for example, more dollar or save dollar instead of saving Turkish lira, because Turkish lira is very depreciated currency and very high inflation, affecting and changing its value, and this is then somehow negatively affecting the economy, results of this application. And inflation reduces the real value of money, because we are also promoting these activities, because inflation is in the system, in the economy, in the domestic market, and results of this inflation, we are giving up our currency usage, and this will then accelerate this devaluation and accelerate this inflation, and results of this, we are deliberately damaging our economies without any without doing any activities, without doing any real activities, but we are just changing our preferences, and this will then cause too much to the economy. And less currency requires more frequent trips to the bank to withdraw money from interest-bearing accounts. And the actual cost of reducing your money holding in the time and convenience you must sacrifice to keep less money on hand, as I mentioned. This will then negatively affecting the economy. And extra tips to the bank: take time away from productive activities. And menu cost is also the similarly adjusted price system. During the inflationary periods, it is necessary to update price lists and other posted prices, and this is also affecting and changing the economical impact. Sometimes you are not able to adapt your price changes because of the system or because of the market structure. You cannot always follow up these price changes and the inflationary pressure on the system, and sometimes in some markets the prices become very low, and in some other markets, in some other institutions or let's say markets, they are having higher prices, and this will then causing some adjustment problem in the prices, creating some inflation, because some people may not easily adapt their prices to the system, but some others will adapt their prices very quickly, and this adoption is also causing some problem, results of this transparent period for controlling and inspecting the money and the price differences in the system. And this is a resource consuming process that takes away from other productive activities, as I mentioned to you, is not good. And inflation distorts relative prices, also possible because consumer decisions are distorted and markets are less able to allocate resources to their best use. Because of this trade distortion and price distortion, consumers' preferences and also decisions are also affected, and also when their preference are changed and their taste and also allocations of the resources are replaced with the other, let's say, products and the markets preferences, then this will then cause some negative effects to the economy. Inflation-induced tax distortion, because indirectly, as I mentioned to you, you may exaggerate the size of the capital gains and increase the tax burden on this type of incomes, because inflation is also somehow an tax burden on the economy, on the consumers, because deliberately you are increasing the prices and causing some consumer welfare loss, and this is somehow some consumer welfare transferred to the producer, results of this inflation, and this is not good. And with progressive taxation, capital gains are taxed more heavily, and if it is subjected to the tax and results of this tax, these prices heavily increased and changed, and this is also burden to the economy, because results of this tax, the people are not preferring to buy these similar products, and they will then replace and substitute with the other cheaper products, and this is then of course sometimes affecting and changing the economy negatively. And the income tax treats the nominal interest rates, saving as income, even through part of the nominal interest rate merely compensate for the inflation. Whether this interest is subjected and realized and covered with the, as I mentioned to you, inflation is good, but many economies and many central banks and the banking sectors are not adopting the interest rate, so-called political interest rate or the nominal interest rate, to the inflation. Therefore, the difference between nominal interest rate and the inflation is always negative, and this negativity causing some value lose. Your capital or your resources which is in the bank will stagnate and will reduce their value. Therefore, it is not good. It is always at least to have some zero between the inflation and the nominal interest rate, zero value. When you get the nominal interest rate and the inflation differences as a zero, at least you are maintaining its value, your capital's value. But if it is negative, you lose. But if it is positive, then you will generate some value in the system. Therefore, real interest value must be positive between between nominal interest rate and inflation should be positive to have some positive real interest rate for generating some capital into the system. Otherwise, this will then reduce your value in the long run, and this will then cause some welfare loss, and the wealthiness of the economy and the nations will become less and less, and is not good for the economy. The after tax, as I said to you, is also similarly affecting and changing the economy. Here, given the real interest rate, as you are observing, price stability 4%, and the economy as an inflation is 4%. Therefore, inflation rate is here for the price stability is 0, but the economy in the inflation is supposed to be 8%, and the nominal interest rate is supposed to be in the real interest rate plus inflation rate is 4 here, and there is 12 given in the economy, B in the inflation. If there is a stable economy, you are observing there is no problem, and the reduced interest rate due to 25% with the taxes supposed to be after 0.25% reduction nominal interest rate will cause some, then this will then reduce some 1 unit, and there it is reduced 3 units, and after the tax nominal interest rate supposed to be the rest of the capital which is holding in your hands is 0.75 plus nominal interest rate will give you then 3 points, and for the economy is giving you the 9%, and after the tax real interest rate is supposed to be 3%, and for the economy with the inflation is supposed to be 1%. This is then the real example for giving you to see how it is affecting the inflation, the economy in the given two comparative economies, for being able to understand the impact of the economy and the tax burden as a given example. As a confusion and inconvenience, when the FIT increases the money supply and it creates inflation, it erodes the real value of the unit of account. Therefore, if the FIT decides to increase the money supply, this will negatively affect the economy because it is the inflation, and this negatively cause some value loss in the economy, and this is then somehow reduce the unit of account in the system, and this is not good for the economy. Therefore, printing money or enlarging the money supply in the system by means of the Fed or by means of the central bank is also not good, because it is creating inflation and it is deliberately reducing its currency value, and it's not good for the economy. And inflation causes dollar at a different times to have different real values in the economy for the United States is supposed to be realized. Therefore, with rising prices, it is more difficult to compare real revenues, cost on profits over the time, because changing economy and prices always affecting the economy very faster, and you cannot follow up these changes, and you cannot adjust the let's say saving account, your current values in the system, or your income changes, whether it is good or not in the long run, it is in the short run, or in the medium run, how it is affecting and changing your economy. You cannot easily estimate, because inflation quickly affecting everything, and the all parameters is changing, and your estimated, let's say, report or your some calculations will not valid for long run, because inflation continuously rising the prices and causing too much to the economy, and you are not able to determine your real wealthiness or your value in the system. Therefore, whether you are profiting from the system as a producer or you are losing as a consumer, you cannot easily adjust if you're not adjusting these price changes quickly to the system, to your production, to your markets, or to your banking sector. This will then causing too much, because it is not easy to adjust the price level and the every other parameters quickly. But in the economies where the stable price economy and the price policy is realized, then these difficulties is not observed very often, because they are having a stable economy and stable price policy, and the inflation is not stagnating very easily. Therefore, you are controlling their economy very steadily and very comparative and very good. Unexpected inflation redistributes wealth among the population in a way that has nothing to do with either merit or need. As I said to you, unexpected inflation causing some welfare loss to the consumers, especially because rising the prices causing too much to the consumer, especially to consumer welfare, and redistributes the resources from consumers to the producers. And this is somehow capitalist approach. Most, let's say, politicians prefer to use this inflation as a short-run application, because they are collecting this capital, because inflation is rising the price and creating some space to the producers to employ people to their economies, to their institutions, to their companies. And this higher inflation sometimes creating some exportable goods market to the economy and enlarge the economy. And merit also for monetary values for the politicians, because they are using their speech always the monetary values. They are so-called the nominal terms, and the monetary values always used. And this state indicates that we are growing, developing. We had 5,000, let's say 5 billion Turkish lira in 2018, but now we have 8 million Turkish lira GDP. In nominal values, in monetary values, if the government and the politicians using these monetary terms, it suggests and exaggerates the economy and manipulates the numbers and the, let's say, economical expansion and growth and development. But in real terms, as I said to you, this is realized probably maybe very small amount, but with monetary values, results of this inflation, which is enlarging the price level, and when you are having higher prices, this will cause also higher resources and higher value and higher capital. This is not good for the economy, and for the economic aspects and economic interpretations also manipulated easily. And this redistribution occurs because many loans in the economy are specified in terms of the unit of account and money, and this is also affected, as I said to you. The unit of account is also negatively affected. And the overall level of the price in the economy adjusts to bring money supply and money demand into the balance, if you are able to do in such a stagnated economic structure. And when the central bank increases the supply of money, it causes the price level to rise. And this is also not good. And persistent growth in the quantity of money supplied leads to a continuous inflation. And this is somehow a problem to the long run economy, because you cannot control the economy and you cannot maintain sustainable economical structure in a given economical model. The principle of money neutrality asserts that the changes in the quantity of money influence nominal variables, but the nominal, not the real variables, as I mentioned. And you have to use always the real terms and real variables for informing the people and for giving some realistic approach about the economy. Otherwise, you can exaggerate and manipulate the numbers, and this is not good for the governments and for the development. And as I mentioned, inflation is a tax also, causing some hyperinflation, some negative impact to the economy. And Fisher effect is also good to know for having some one-to-one adjustment to the economy, and transparency will bring to the realistic consideration and estimation and comparison the economies easily. And economists have identified 6 causes of inflation, as I said to you: Schulte cost, menu cost, increasing variability of the relative prices, unintended tax liability changes, and confusion and inconvenience. And arbitrary redistribution of the wealth is supposed to be affecting and changing the economy negatively. And when bank loans out their deposits, they increase the quantity of money in the economy, and because of the Fed, or so-called the central bank, cannot control the amount of bankers choose to lend or the amount of households choose to deposit in banks, and the Fed or the central bank control of the money supply is imperfectly realized under these conditions. And this was the class for today. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any question, let me know. If you don't, then I will finish it.
Okay, sir. I don't have any questions.
Okay. I go a little bit faster to finish it. If you have any problem, I hope you got it. If you go flashback, I have, as I said to you, always on the YouTube, because you want to refresh yourself, and you can stop and go and repeat the explanations, and then you will understand better, because I am going very faster, and I suppose that you understand everything. And in an hour and in 2 hours, it's not possible to explain very comprehensively. But if you read these chapters on YouTube and stop it and repeat it and again, then you will understand better these explanations. And if you use also your stuff, you will improve your knowledge. And if you have any problem, then you can contact me, you mail me, or you can use the WhatsApp to communicate with me. If not, then I stop and finish this class for today. Thank you very much for joining this class. And
Thank you.
you can upload your assignments for increasing your results to the system, okay?
Okay, sir.
Because
Thank you.
this was given to you
Okay,
for your midterms.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.